Hi there, Tracy from Kazadans Equestrian, and welcome to this week's video. This week I'm having a look at the different footing or our training surfaces, arena surfaces, to see how that impacts your horse and why we need to be a bit more aware of the surface we're training on. Okay, before I get into the topic, if you're new to the channel, please have a look around. Don't forget, subscribe, like, share, comment, do all of those things that help support my channel. Thank you. So when we are training our horse, there's obviously a moment when the hoof hits the ground, and in reality what happens here is quite a lot of impact and a collision between the hoof and the ground. This occurs during the stance phase, so if you think about the hoof hitting the ground, it then has its weight standing, and then it basically rolls over on the hoof and lifts, and that hoof becomes airborne again. During this process, there are so many different forces at multiple angles in multiple directions that occur, not only to the hoof wall, but actually to the lower leg. So really all the structures of that lower leg, particularly fetlock, coffin bones, tendons and ligaments around that lower leg, all are feeling some kind of force. This is particularly important to dressage horses, and I'll talk about going round and round in circles a bit later in the video because that's a whole nother thing, but dressage actually has quite unique movements. And some of these unique movements are done quite repetitively and are also extreme movements for the horse. And I'm talking in particular here about an extended trot. Interestingly enough, they've done some studies on different surfaces in different disciplines, but with this extended trot, they have found that the actual impact is 40% greater on a synthetic surface than it is plain dirt. Now that's interesting. The other thing they found is the actual extension of the fetlock, and if you're not aware as to why that's important, have a look at my suspensory ligament video or any of my other lameness videos. But when we're going into extended trot, we're really putting a lot more extension on that fetlock joint, obviously a lot more strain on the soft tissue around that. And they've also found that the fetlock extension on synthetic surfaces in the extended trot is greater than on the dirt. The most common injury to dressage horses is actually in the suspensory ligament. So if you train or ride your horse in dressage and you're not aware of the impact of these surfaces, then you need to keep watching. The other interesting things, if we look at the other end of the scale, which is race horses, then their impact is actually higher on hard surfaces than soft surfaces. Why do you ask? Well, you've got to have a look at the speed, how quickly they can roll over and then take that weight off of the hoof under that pressure, and also the types of movements. And this is why not one surface is going to suit one horse or one discipline best. So hard surfaces are definitely associated with lower limb issues. In particular, like I said, fetlock, coffin joint, and soft tissues, tendons and ligaments down that lower part of the limb. In fact, on a hard surface, your superficial digital flexor tendon is more likely to get injured, as well as causing damage to the fetlock joint itself. Now, this doesn't mean you should never work your horse on a hard surface, which I hear a lot of people say. But what we need to do is think about a fitness for purpose. If your horse hasn't been worked on hard surfaces, then you're not going to go and work that horse hard on a hard surface, but let's try and start getting them acclimatizing to the different surfaces so that you can work your horse on the occasion on a hard surface, and there is benefits to that, which I'll talk about as well a little bit later in this video. Obviously, this impact can be softened by creating a soft surface. In particular, horses that are jumping cope very much better on landing on a soft surface than they do on a hard surface, and those concussive forces are not as damaging. However, these soft surfaces are actually putting less concussive force on joints, but more force on the soft tissue and the tendons. And you imagine, as even if you're walking on the sand at the beach, it's very similar. That leverage that you need to get out of the depth puts extensive strain on those tendons and ligaments. So if the ground is soft, the fetlock remains extended for a much longer period of time, which is of course why in racing that doesn't occur, because we're trying to speed up, and so that happens quickly. But if you're going into soft surfaces, the fetlock extension is definitely greater and held for longer. This obviously reduces speed in the horse, so again we're dropping in the percentage of risk of speed-related injury, but we're increasing the risk of the soft tissue damage. If you are riding a horse that has a history of any tendon or ligament issues, any soft tissue disease, then you must only work your horse on soft but firm surfaces. So that's kind of a caveat over everything that I'm saying. If you've already got a horse that has one of these or has had a tendon ligament injury, the surface needs to be, one, very consistent, and two, firm but soft. So horses that don't have injuries, what is the best surface to work on? Well, the truth is it's best to mix them up to enable your horse to get used to the different surfaces. In saying that, what I don't mean is go hooning out in a forest where it's uneven, etc., and go, oh, we've gone through sand, water, everything. The idea is that each of the training surfaces is very consistent. And then we change up which training surface we use, but we do it gradually. When I say gradually, I mean if you're taking a horse from, I guess, a normal arena work and you want to start doing some hard surface work or vice versa, you want to start at slow gaits, mostly walk, a tiny bit of trot, 10 to 15 minutes max, and gradually work up from there. This is important because what happens is there are basically micro tears or micro damage that occurs to both the bone and the tendons during work, and certainly during the changing of force on the horse's leg. And what we really want is that there's a process of remodeling then that occurs. And now this is very normal. This is how horses' legs get stronger as they're growing as well. There's micro damage, and then remodeling occurs to strengthen where that micro damage has occurred. If we do not allow enough time for the remodeling to catch up with the damage, that's when we're looking at things like stress fractures and major damage. So we must introduce these different surfaces slowly. And also, if maybe your horse has overdone it on one of these surfaces, etc., please leave your horse, do not work them for the next 3 or 4 days, and allow that remodeling process to catch up. So the other variation is that individual horses can work better on different surfaces, and because this can depend on what discipline you're training for. But the conformation of your horse, the genetics of your horse. Is your horse from a line who are prone to arthritis? Any other health issues or prior injuries are going to make your horse work better or worse on particular surfaces. So it is important to read up and make yourself really familiar with the different surfaces and work out which one feels the most comfortable and feels like you get the best work from your horse on. So there's no magic pill here for me to say you use this surface and this is exactly how deep it should be and what material it should be made of, and no horses will get any injury. But it is there for you to be aware and think about the surface that you're training on. A lot of people just jump from arena to arena or go from there to working out on a trail ride, taking their horses down bitumen roads or on concrete. What I really want you to be aware of is that these different surfaces have majorly different impacts on the horse's hoof and all of the structures in the lower leg. So you need to be aware if you're working on a different surface. You need to be aware of your horse and which one it works better on, and aware of changing those surfaces and allowing that remodeling process to occur. So really this is about being mindful of the surface that you're working your horse on. So the footing is going to affect the overall soundness, and there is no perfect picture of the best arena for all circumstances, all horses and all disciplines. The one thing I can say is whatever surface you are working on must be maintained and consistent. So even arenas with high sand, low sand are not really appropriate for training because the horse can't judge that. And you're looking then at more concussive forces in the harder areas and more tendon strain in the soft areas. So it's up to you to make a conscious decision, not just to ignore and just work your horse and not think about the surface that you're working them on. I've got a link in the description box here for a great guide to arena and footing and what it means and what the bests are. And it's from the FEI, so it's a free download. I'll put a link in the description box. But hopefully this video has simply made you think that you must be more aware of the surfaces you're working your horse on, and also more aware of, I guess, acclimatizing them to the different surfaces if you need to do that, watching them for injury. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel. Click share on it. That would be fantastic. Comment on the YouTube video itself if you can. Click that notification bell so that you get notified when I release my video next week. And thanks for listening.